Morant with a running start. Elevate! Oh, it dunks! Oh, my goodness! Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant! Oh, he hit it! John Morant, insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. On today's episode, Chris Herrington joins me to preview the Grizzlies season and to talk about opening night, to talk about the Jaren Jackson Jr. injury news. He's going to miss probably the first 2 games, it sounds like. Also, Luke Kennard is going to miss several games to start the year. So Chris and I talk about where the Grizzlies stack up in the West, what we think the problems are, the things we're excited about, and more. Before we get, let's bring on there. Just wanted to tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Right now, ahead of the NBA season, Underdog is offering new users $1,000 in bonus cash if you sign up using my promo code FBBF. Underdog is pretty fun. You can do hires or lowers based on your favorite players' stat projections. You can also join daily fantasy drafts where you pick your favorite NBA players or just the NBA players you think are going to do the best. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to sign up and try it out, use that promo code FBBF. And again, they will match your opening deposit up to $1,000. All right. Now let's go ahead and bring on Chris Herrington of the Daily Memphian, a good friend and a great Grizzlies writer. Chris, happy NBA season. How are you doing?
What's up, Keith? Fired up, ready to go.
Oh, man. The Grizzlies are about to hit the ground running with maybe Jay Huff minutes on opening night. No, it's not ideal, Chris, the way the Grizzlies are starting the season off. I kind of wanted to do a whole like Grizzlies preseason wrap up / regular season predictions, and I'll do some Grizzlies predictions. But right now I'm just thinking this is kind of worst case scenario, but maybe not. How are you feeling ahead of the Jazz game?
Oh, it's not worst case scenario.
Well, I mean, it's not worst case, but it's not good.
We have seen worse. They sort of strung us along. I don't think they strung us along. Maybe they didn't know. But we kind of got teased on the Jaren thing. You were like, Jaren and Ja, they're good for opening night. And then Jaren doesn't play the last preseason game. It's, he just needs a couple more days. He should be good for the opener. Yeah. And now I guess they're saying game 3 at home. Like, it's almost like, Lucy in the football. So do we think we're going to make contact with the football on Saturday? I would hope so. I will say this, a couple things about it. A sore hamstring is the kind of thing that if you don't get it right, could just linger for a long time. So I get that. That's the kind of thing that you don't want to play on when it's bothering a player. I sort of understand that. And he was never going to play the first 3 games anyway, because coming off the injury, he wasn't going to play both halves of the back-to-back, games 2 and 3. So we were always going to get 2 of the first 3 at most. Now it sounds like maybe we'll get 1 of the first 3. Yeah. So let's just hope we have it in the rear view after that.
I agree with you about the hamstring thing. This is a thing I've never understood watching other sports.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you watched Monday Night Football. Mike Evans had a hamstring issue, was questionable before the game. He's out there limping. And I'm just like, who cares about week 6 or whatever we are, the NFL season? He's going to hurt himself again. And he hurt himself. Like he left the game out with hamstring. It's like the guy was limping on a hamstring. Like, what? I don't understand playing through the injury. So I'm all about, of course, letting that thing heal and not having it linger.
We saw this with Tony Allen in the playoff series in 2015. He had a sore hamstring late in the season, but it's the playoffs. Like, you're going to play.
That was different.
And a sore hamstring late in the season, and then he re-aggravated it in the series.
But now, actually, so Jaren's now been out, what is this, 4 weeks with no actual injury update.
It was the first day of training camp.
When it
happened, right?
So well, I guess it's been 3. It's been basically exactly 3 since then.
But the other thing about that, now that I think about it, I was not there at practice. I am not in Memphis right now. I will be in Memphis by the end of the week. At practice, I guess Taylor Jenkins sort of alluded to it being more of a conditioning thing than a hamstring thing. that like, the injury is okay.
Yeah.
But he hadn't played in a month. And so you're trying to, to me, like, let's give the hamstring more time. It's more persuasive than the conditioning part of it.
Yeah. Let's play a game of multiple choice. Chris, would you rather have an out of breath Jaren Jackson Jr. or Jake LaRavia?
Yeah, or I mean, Brandon Clark's been pretty up and down. Like, what are your odds on that?
Well, I don't have are we playing Jay Huff over Brandon Clark? We don't have an option. We have to play Brandon Clark.
No, I agree. Right. But the more bodies you have, if a guy's not playing well, you get other places to turn. So yeah, no, I would like to see Jaren out there. I don't know if we've gotten much of an update on Kennard either. Other than like a while or
I think
whatever.
He said a week. I think specifically he said a week at the press conference yesterday
did he say
on
that?
Monday.
We also haven't gotten an update, the promised update, which I think we're not due for, but I think we're due for any second now on Vince Williams Jr. And so, like, my hope would be that we see, Jaren by the end of this week, and that we see Kennard and Vince like in a matter of weeks. I mean, certainly, before Thanksgiving, would be my hope on both of them at least.
So we are going to go a little big picture on this episode, talking about the entire Grizzlies season. But right in front of our faces right now is the fact that the season starts tomorrow. By the way, if you're in the Nashville, Tennessee area, come out to Noble's Beer Hall on Main Street in Nashville, 8 p.m. tip off. We're on Mountain Time as the Grizzlies take on the Jazz. But right now in front of our faces is this shorthanded Grizzlies squad. Once again, we have Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart. That part's exciting. We get to see Zach Edey's debut. That part's very, very exciting. Beyond that, who are the good NBA players, Chris, who are available? Call him Brandon Clark. Is Brandon Clark above average?
Yeah, if he's right. The thing with Brandon Clark is that it seems like he has to be right. And so, are you going to be right? And so, yeah, I'm trying to remember who's playing here. Santi was good in the preseason. We'll see if that carries over.
Santi, as I said, shot the cover off the ball in the preseason. Hopefully that carries over. But he's not. Is he a top 200 NBA player? You'd be hard pressed to find a non-Grizzlies fan that says so.
Obviously, Zach Edey is really important, especially with Jaren out. And I think John, when you're playing Utah, especially. Like Ja Morant, Desmond Bane just have to go out and like win the game, Yes. So like go do it,
Yeah, I am rather nervous. And then I mean after the Jazz game, which you have to fight the opening night enthusiasm of that Salt Lake City crowd, which is not great. If you're a gambling person, it feels like the Lowry Markkanen overs might be a pretty good wager going up against Santi Aldama.
They're not tanking yet. They haven't traded anyone yet.
Exactly.
Like Colin Sexton might be, playing for, the Denver Nuggets in April or whatever, but he's playing for the Utah Jazz now and on down the line. So the Utah Jazz team that will play this opener will be, probably the most talented team they field all season.
My next question is, so then the Friday night game is against the Rockets.
Yeah, that'd be a rough one. I think the Rockets are pretty good. So I think
the Rockets are amazing. And we already know there's no Jaren or Luke. It's not going to surprise me if Marcus or even Ja, like, are they going to go ahead and do a rest game ahead of the back-to-back for the Saturday night opener? So we're full strength against the Magic on Saturday. I don't know. I have bad vibes about the whole opening of the season. We have another back-to-back next week. Games 5 and 6 are a back-to-back. So all this to say, let's now go big picture. Let's pull back a little bit.
All right.
My enthusiasm for the season and watching Grizzlies basketball, sky high, like everybody else. Can't wait. I'm so excited to see the Grizzlies not play last year. My optimism for where the Grizzlies are going to finish in the West and how the season is going to go is not very high relative to, I think, the fan base. I predicted on Fast Break Breakfast yesterday, we did our Western Conference over-unders. I think the Grizzlies are headed towards about 45 wins, and I consider that a good outcome.
Oh, I'm higher than that. I mean, obviously there's downside in terms of injury stuff. Yeah. I've been toggling, and so like every time I've done something where I've talked or written a prediction, it's been slightly different. Like, I don't have some ironclad, like this is what I believe, and I'm unyielding in my belief. I've sort of toggled between... I generally think they're going to finish somewhere between 4 and if they have reasonable health. I think they'll finish somewhere between 4 and 6 in the West, And to me, that is somewhere between 46 and 53 wins.
Yeah.
When I did Nate Duncan's podcast that I do every year previewing the team, he caught me in a low moment.
Yeah.
My prediction on that pod was 46 wins. Then I saw Zach Edey play against the Pacers. And then I got a good report from Taylor Jenkins about how John Moran and Jaren Jackson were going to be ready for opening night.
Yeah.
And that rose me up to like 50 wins and like fourth place. And now maybe I'm receding back a little bit again. And so but I have them in that range. I have them, 46 to 53 is my range if they have reasonable health. But that's the thing.
So your low end right there, you say 46 wins. I'm having trouble putting together mentally my math.
Oh, it could easily be worse.
Yeah, that gets me there. Like, what is the formula? Let's say they win 53 games or they win 50 games. What specifically is the formula to you? And I think obviously we're talking about health of the team, but beyond health, is it the defense? Is it this new offense is going to be?
I think they have a chance to get back to a top 5 level defense.
Yep.
Not 1 or 2. I think, like to me, my top tier when I was thinking about the league defense is like in no particular order, OKC, Boston, Minnesota, maybe it's like my top tier. But I have the Grizzlies sort of in the group right after that, with Orlando and Cleveland. And, so I think they can get back to a top 5-ish defense. And I think they can get to an above average, maybe top 10-ish offense if things break right. I mean, they were 4th, I think, in offense the year they won 56 games. I'm not expecting that. But I think the tools are there if things click right to be an above average offense with a top 5 level defense. And I think you put those two things together, and I think that's a team that could, be pushing up towards 50 wins, give or take on either side of that. I also think for all the hand-wringing we're doing about the depth issues, I think there are Western Conference contenders that have worse depth than the Grizzlies. I think, to me, that's one of the stories of the season as we go forward is that I think over 82 games, the durability depth stuff is going to more so than like the high-end talent is going to dictate the standings. And like, I think Denver's depth is way shakier than the Grizzlies' depth. And I think you go around, there are other teams. Phoenix's depth is as shaky, if not more shaky. And so I think the Grizzlies' depth is not that bad, really. I think it's more middle of the pack.
So I actually, obviously the Nuggets, they have no depth. I've also seen Nikola Jokic carry Facundo Campazzo and the corpse of Will Barton to like 52 wins or something. Like I saw him do that.
Here's my spiel on Denver.
Yeah.
Denver, when they won the title 2 years ago, they were a 6-man team.
Yeah.
And all their starters and Bruce Brown. Yeah. All 6 of those players were healthy for most of the season, and for literally every playoff game for 4 rounds, they were all healthy.
Yeah.
Last year, they were a 5-man team. They didn't adequately replace Bruce Brown. Denver, over the course of the whole season, according to Clean the Glass, had a +6 net rating as a team. When you take Kentavious Caldwell-Pope off the floor, and we're talking about 3,000 possessions at that point, they go from +6 to -4. So I think they have fewer proven players than they did a year ago. But B, I think the proven players they still have, they're not going to play as much. Nikola Jokic played 79 games. He's super durable, but he's not going to play more than that.
Yep.
Michael Porter Jr. played 81.
Yeah.
Aaron Gordon played like 73, 74. So I think they have fewer good players, and the good players they have are going to play fewer games. So that's my thing on Denver. Jokic is great, but there's got a lot of heavy lifting that has to happen there.
I mean, I love some on-off stats. I know KCP's minutes greatly tied to the starting unit. Thus, he's going to spend a lot of his time with Jokic. Right. Thus, that boosts the numbers. So, like, I'm with you where I'm not as high on the Nuggets, but I still feel like they're a much safer pick than our Grizzlies. My problem is when we think about the Grizzlies getting back into that top, like, I think they're gonna have a top 10 defense. I don't think that's bold or anything. As long as Jaren and Vince come back like we expect them to pretty soon, I think they're gonna have a top 10 defense. As far as the offense, my concerns are the previous years where we had a good offense, as you know, it was based on winning the possessions game, offensive rebounding, and forcing a lot of turnovers. I'm hopeful we can get back to forcing a lot of turnovers. None of those turnover forcing guys are really playing on Wednesday night. Marcus Smart is, we hope, but I'm more concerned about, I don't see the rebounding on this team still.
No, the offensive rebound numbers in preseason were good. And that was,
they were absolutely. Yeah.
And that was without, I know people don't think of Jaren as a good rebounder, but I think on offense, I think having Jaren at power forward actually does help your offensive rebounding.
And, yeah, a lot of that also, as Adam Pike pointed out a couple episodes ago, they've emphasized heavily offensive rebounding. The new part of the new scheme that these new coaches have brought is this offensive tagging rebound, where like everyone's crashing in. So apparently we're going to crash the glass a lot. So maybe that will on its own generate these rebounds. And again, so far proof positive in the preseason. They've done a good job of rebounding. They won rebounding, I think, maybe every game. But I always fall back to just looking at the players, and I don't know if that's right or wrong or not. And I'm like, I don't see who the good. I hope Edey boxes out everybody. But beyond that,
no, I think Edey has to be a real presence on the boards. I think Vince Williams Jr. I think needs to probably be in the starting lineup by the end of the season. I think he rebounds like a power forward from the wing spot. I think he's key. I think I have some hope. I've become around more to what they're doing on offense than I was at the beginning of the preseason, in part because, as I kept trying to stress to people, it's not going to be all or nothing. They're not going to do, we're running our system, this new system, every second of every possession of every game. They're gonna run. Can I cuss on this podcast?
No.
They're gonna run
G-rated.
No? Okay, I don't think this counts as cussing. I think I can say this. They're gonna run basic ass post ups for Zach Edey.
Yeah. I need some of that.
Basic post ups for Zach Edey. They're gonna run basic pick and roll with John Morant and Zach Edey. And they're also gonna sprinkle in some of this, motion stuff they've been doing with all the back cuts and all that. I am somewhat optimistic that the mix will be good.
Yeah.
That they'll be able to use things in the right doses, and that they will generate better half-court offense than they have in the past. And I think the better half-court offense will offset what I think will be not as good of a transition offense as they had in the past. I think they will not be as dynamic or effective in transition as maybe they were in the past, but it'll balance out. And so, 3 years ago, they were the fourth best offense. Maybe they're going to be 11th this season. I think they had a chance to be something like that.
So another one of my, biggest concerns, and a reason why I have kind of capped my predictions for the Grizzlies. I mean, one part of it is I'm actually really into a lot of the other Western Conference teams that I feel like have actually progressed maybe faster or further than the Grizzlies. But I worry about the shooting overall on the team. And if Aldama shoots it at 40% this year, well, that's a huge boost. That'd be surprising, but maybe he can. If Jalen Wells enters the rotation and shoots above average from the 3-point line, that would be a huge boost. It'd be unexpected. But I have extreme worries about the overall team 3-point percentage. And you look at the starters, and right now the starters, Desmond Bane is the only good 3-point shooter, and John Morant's 3-point shooting is terrible, and Marcus Smart's is terrible. And you're the only guy I know who's been like a Jaren believer in the shooting the whole time. I feel like you were like that in college when you were scouting him. He has the 1 year.
Well, but beyond that, he's the one great year. 2 years ago, he shot 36%. He's a 7-foot combo big.
Yeah.
And so what constitutes good shooting and effective shooting for a 7-foot combo big is different than what constitutes good shooting for a 6'4" guard.
Yeah.
I think Jaren's shooting, it fluctuates a lot. It's fluctuated a lot. But generally, and I did a piece on Jaren earlier this year where I did this little graph where I looked at him like percentile basis and 2-point impact and 3-point impact, and relative position, he's higher percentile as a 3-point shooter than a 2-point shooter, actually, or has been. I think Jaren has to shoot threes. I think for the spacing, for everything else. I think it matters a lot whether you get 36% or 33% from him as a 3-point shooter, but I think that has to be part of the arsenal.
No, I'm not saying don't shoot 3-pointers, Jaren. I'm saying over the past 4 seasons, he's at 32.5% from 3. Which is just flat out, that's not great when you pair it with Ja Morant, who isn't shooting the basketball well, and you pair it with Marcus Smart, who's a career basically 33% 3-point shooter, and then you have Zach Edey, who can't shoot, and then you look at your bench, and it's all your Conchars, your Laravias, your Brandon Clark, who's pledged to get back to being a 40% 3-point shooter he was.
I don't need to see Brandon Clark taking threes. That's what I don't need to see.
My concern overall is I have trouble when you add up all the shooting numbers for all the players who are going to play. Like, how many offensive rebounds do we have to get to make that offense okay? And then I look at team 3-point shooting last year. Every team that was in the top half of the league 3-point shooting last year basically was good, made playoffs, or at least the very least the play-in. The only team last year in the bottom 10 of 3-point percentage to make the playoffs was the Orlando Magic. And I do think the Grizzlies can replicate what the Orlando Magic did last year, which was have a really good defense and just scrape out enough offense.
I think Orlando Magic didn't have a guard in John Morant that could get in the lane and hit a floater whenever he wanted to.
Agreed.
Orlando Magic did not have a 7'4" center with touch and Zach Edey you can throw the ball to in the post and like scored a high percentage off of jump hooks and spin moves and just post stuff. I don't think they had a lob threat at the level of Zach Edey or Brandon Clark or a point guard to throw the ball to connect that way.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but also the second point you went to was a rookie center.
That's true, but I don't. Part of me is just resistant. I understand what the numbers say. Yeah. I'm resistant to the church of 3-point shooting. Just as a basketball fan, I sort of recoil a little bit about it. But the only way you can be good is to just like just take 53s. Like that's not interesting to me, you know. And so that's why I welcome the new like back cuts and all of this, like the off ball movement and the let's throw a bounce pass to a guy cutting to the hoop for a layup, please. Let's get in transition, please.
I agree with you there. I mean, I don't like watching teams launch 50 or more 3-pointers. By the way, I think in the preseason, the Grizzlies shot, I think their lowest first quarter 3-point attempts was 12. They took so many 3-pointers in every game and in the first quarter. I don't like it either, but I do think it's sort of, I don't know, it's resisting the future. If you don't embrace it, you look like last year in the Western Conference, the teams that won a first round series, the Thunder, they were first in 3-point percentage last year. The Timberwolves, they were third 3-point percentage. The other two, the Nuggets and the Mavericks, who have Jokic and Doncic, they were 10th and 13th in 3-point percentage. The only team with an above average or in the top half of 3-point percentage league-wide last year to win a playoff series league-wide, it was the Cavaliers. They were 15th, and they beat the Magic, who were horrible at 3-point shooting. So like my concern is it is the league now. And maybe Tomas Isolo and the new staff is like, listen, we're going to beat it with back cuts and offensive rebounding. And that's our scheme. That's our math to beat the 3-point barrage.
They're going to take a lot of threes. I think your hope is that they can be a league average 3-point shooting team.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you can, and I think that possibility is there. If you could be a league average 3-point shooting team, I think the other stuff, that what you do in transition, what you do on the offensive boards, what you do, with a pick and roll game, what you do with the cutting, what you do with having John Morant on your team. Your best player is not a 3-point shooter. Your best player is a get into the paint player who will create shots for himself and others by inside the arc. You have the center you're going to. I think they can have a good balance and a good mix. And if they get the balance right, again, I'm not saying they're going to be a great offensive team, but I think they have the potential to be an above average offensive team and like push towards the top 10. And if you're a top 5 offense and a top 10 defense, then you still don't look like a title team. OKC and Boston were top 5 in both categories last season. But I think that puts you back in the playoff team tier.
Yeah. The formula, not to get too mathematical about it, but it's just how I'm not even a math person, but it's kind of how my brain starts working when I think about like the Grizzlies being good and other teams being good. The formula in my brain, what I'm hoping for is like, all right, if we get a 35 to 36% season from Jaren from 3, if Ja can just kick it up by 1% or something, if Santi can shoot it now that he's more open because Ja Morant and Desmond Bane are actually creating better looks for him. And then if the bench guys, if any of those guys can shoot, then we get to the league average. And then we get to 36% as a team, which I'm still a little bit skeptical. And I do like the fact that, hey, if we're going to launch 48 threes a game, I'm actually quite relieved that the plan is to crash the glass, because otherwise like last year, a lot of the time it was like, hey, we're shooting these pull-up threes with no rebounders. What's your best case scenario there? I'm like, that's a 0.8 points per possession hope when this guy shoots a pull-up 3, so I see you there. Let's ask a big question. Actually, I have a big question about the Grizzlies. We'll do it right after this quick break. All right, Chris, how would you define a good season for the Grizzlies this year? And then how do you think the front office or the organization would define a good season for the Grizzlies?
Well, it's a lot easier to answer the first part because I can speak for myself. I don't know what they would think. Maybe it would be similar. I tend to think my sense is they're pretty reasonable. And so I'm going to give them credit and think and just say that they're going to believe whatever I'm going to believe. And so what I believe is like a pass fail line in terms of not more than a pass fail, but the line of good. Like this has been an acceptable positive season line is what you're talking about. I think that is a top 6 finish in the West. Mm-hmm. So you get fully into the playoffs without having to fight your way through the play-in. A top 6 finish and a competitive enough playoff series that you can come out of it feeling like we were back on track. We went through this 9.5 long detour. We've gotten the train back on the track. We are in the mix again, and that the front office can feel like, okay, next year can be the year. We have to go all in next year. We've rerouted it back on the track. We're headed in the right direction. The pieces are in place with a little bit more good luck and some tweaks. If we add to what we have and we progress from it, next year could be the year. I'm fine with this year, which was the year, but you're asking me like the line of good, right?
Yeah.
That's to me the line of good. Top 6 finish, competitive playoff performance, and feeling like you're back on track with better to come if you add to it.
So, and you're combining that, you're like, that works for you, and you're also assuming that works for...
I think that's to me, that is the rational approach, and I would hope that the team is rational about it.
If I do a pass fail for this season, my pass fail is like, if we win like 44, 45 games, I'm going to be happy because we're going to be competitive most of the year. And right. I assume that gets us in the play-in at the very least. If they win 46 games, I would still be pleased. 47. When you mentioned finishing top 6, that'd be really, really good. But I'm worried just about the rest of the West. And I think that might be kind of hard. I'll say
the most interesting place in the whole league standings wise is 11th place in the West.
Yeah,
that is a rough spot to be.
Who's your 11th in the West right now? Do you have it?
This is something that changes.
Where your top 10?
This is something that changes every day for me.
Yeah,
I've toggled between. I'm more of a believer in the Rockets than most people, and so
not more than me, Chris. Not more than me.
Maybe not. But I've toggled between, for different reasons, the Pelicans, the Warriors, the Lakers, and the Kings.
Yeah.
Sort of those 4 teams. I think it's going to be, I have more doubts about those 4 teams than I do, say, the Grizzlies, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but I don't know. My initial hunch was the Warriors.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who the second best player on that team is. Whoever it is, it's a bad second best player.
Sure.
And I think if anything happens to Curry, that's a team that could just pull the plug super fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now I have the Pelicans as my 11th, but that is still kind of in the face of them winning 49 games last year and Zion Williamson looking quite good in the preseason. Going back to the good season question. For me, a good season, I feel like a successful season. I don't know. Now I'm just semantics of the word good. I like the pass fail where I feel like I've been so battered and bruised, and we all have based off last year, that it's like, all right, just 45 wins and being competitive and making the postseason would be great. I feel like though we've moved the goalposts for what good seasons should be. Like this is year 6 of Ja Morant. We had much bigger dreams than this. The fact that we're not even hoping for a first round playoff series win. Like you were like, I'm hoping for. I know, but I'm saying like the fact that that's not the standard anymore. The fact that the standard isn't, hey, let's actually win a playoff series. How about that?
It's not the standard. Well, it could for some people, maybe. For me, things have happened. Like the last year and a half happened to this team, you know?
Zach Kleiman said they have a championship level roster. He said that at the opening of training camp on media day.
They might have a championship level roster this roster may be a championship level roster in 2 years when Zach Edey's in his 3rd NBA season.
Oh, you're saying this is I got you. Yeah. Cause this is not a championship level roster. Just flat out.
I think our mutual friend, Michael Pina of the Ringer, picked the Grizzlies to make the NBA finals this week.
He did?
He did, and John Hollinger picked him to finish 11th in the West and miss the postseason.
Also,
I would say both of those things are very much in play.
The LeBron predictor stat thing? It picked the Grizzlies have a very bad record.
Kevin Jones' projection had him 2nd. Like it's all over the place.
I'm stunned Michael Pina did that. I also saw Rob Mahoney, who's a friend of mine. Like he picked the Grizzlies to have a very good year. Like it's weird because I like Nate Duncan had a higher win prediction than you did. It's weird where I feel like the people not in the Grizzlies universe right now maybe seem a little more optimistic, and maybe we're just too close to it all. Where we're like, I see this possible issue and this possible issue.
No, I don't. I don't. In this case, I don't think it's that we're too close. I think that it's that the optimistic people are not quite close enough.
Okay.
It's been striking to me how, and this may end up being a good thing. I mean, we'll see. But it's been striking to me how much people around the league, even people touting the Grizzlies, haven't really picked up on like they're totally rehauling their strategic approach to basketball.
Yeah.
You know, that's like not part of like, what people are talking about.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in depth and just teams having good depth. And maybe it doesn't matter for playoff victories because you shorten your rotation, but I'm a big believer in depth. And I have just massive questions about the Grizzlies, especially the situation with no Gigi Jackson and no Vince Williams Jr. and now no Luke and no Jaren. And so like, that's why when I see like the Vegas line of their win total line is 47.5, and they've consistently been basically the 5th best team all off season, according to casinos, and casinos don't mean that much, but they're normally not wrong massively on things. They have good ideas. And so I see that and I'm like, that number seems way too high. I would be so thrilled if they won 48 games. But looking at the West right now, I think consensus, I'm guessing you're along with consensus. We think the Thunder and probably the Timberwolves and the Mavericks are maybe the 3 best teams in the West, maybe Nuggets too. Like those 4 teams you all feel good about, or are you so down on the Nuggets that you're like, we can take them?
I've got, to me, the top tier, and you could say the top tier is Oklahoma City, but to be broader than that, to me, the top tier in the West is OKC, Dallas, Minnesota. Yeah. I have, for regular season basketball, I have the Nuggets in the next group down.
Yeah. So I had that's me too. I had the Nuggets 4th behind those teams. Here's where I get controversial, and here's where I will get maybe negative feedback on my YouTube page. I think the Suns are clearly better than the Grizzlies. I would love to be wrong. Maybe if I have proof of concept of seeing the Grizzlies play healthily together, maybe if the Suns, their depth issues pop up.
Yeah, to me, I've had them. I toggled the Grizzlies and the Suns back and forth in those 4th, 5th spots, day to day. Are they getting 150 games again from Kevin Durant and Yusuf Nurkic? But I do think adding the point guards and adding Budenholzer,
Budenholzer hasn't. Yeah, Budenholzer has won 48 games or more every year since back when he was with the Hawks. So like, I don't know. I believe they're going to, their math, they're going to increase their 3-point volume and they're going to win a lot more games.
As of today, since my predictions very slightly change every single day. Yeah. As of today, I do have Phoenix 4th in the,
so I have those 5 teams ahead of the Grizzlies. And now I fear that the Kings, the Warriors, and Rockets are all as good or better than the Grizzlies. I think the Rockets are awesome 1 through 10. And maybe they don't have the absolute apex. They don't have a Ja Morant.
No.
But
there's also a pecking order. There's also a pecking order chemistry question there. Yeah. I tend to believe in Ime Udoka figuring that out.
Yes.
Course of the season, which is why I'm high on the Rockets.
The Rockets just have winning basketball players, and like Fred VanVleet plus Şengün plus Jabari Smith. Like I think Amen Thompson is awesome. They actually got contracts done. Jalen Green got paid. Jalen Green bought in last year. Of course, we all know as Grizzlies fans that Dylan Brooks bought in. Their bench is going to be outstanding. And hopefully Steven Adams makes it through the whole season. And like Steven Adams, Reed Shepherd bench stuff with Cam Whitmore, they're so deep. I worry, like on Friday night, are we really going to be playing Scottie Pippen Jr., John Conchar, Jake LaRavia, like up against the Rockets bench? It's going to be a massacre when our best guys are off the court. So like, I believe regular season Rockets. I also think despite like the Steph Curry injury concerns, the Warriors have a 1 through 11 that also is built for regular season basketball.
The Warriors have, this is why I've gone, my initial hunch on the Warriors were they were the team left out because of the concern about Curry's games played and because of the gap from Curry to the rest of the roster. But once I sort of convincing myself that depth was going to really drive things in the regular season, they may be a deepest hitting team in the league in terms of like how good are your 9th, 10th, 11th men. And so I think if Curry stays healthy and they want to be, like to me, their ceiling is 48 wins. Right? I mean, they're not going to get out of the 40s, I don't believe, even in a best case scenario. But if Steph Curry stays healthy and they just are committed to being a 40-something win team and being decent, I think, they probably will be.
They were maybe I can't remember. I don't have the stats pulled up. I think they were the best rebounding team in the NBA last year, and they were a great defense last year. I think they are a shoo-in to have a top 5 defense. I mean, they replaced Klay Thompson with like D'Anthony Melton, Kyle Anderson. Yes, they have Buddy Hield coming in, but with Pajimski, with Andrew Wiggins, with Trace Jackson Davis, with Kevon Looney, with Draymond, the only bad defender in their top like 11 is Buddy Hield. And I think they're going to be amazing at defense. Of course, it's all about Steph. If Steph misses 20 games,
they have to have Curry. And I don't remember. I wrote this in my written preview, and I don't remember what it was, but last year was his highest games played total in several years, I think.
Yeah.
It was the same. Same was true, by the way, of Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
Yeah.
Same was true of Kevin Durant. A lot of those guys. I don't know whether it was the new 65 game thing, but I don't believe that's going to happen again for all those guys. I think the games played is going to go back down for all of those guys.
Yeah, it certainly could. And then, like, I haven't mentioned the Kings. The Kings not going to have a good defense, but they should have enough firepower where I worry about them. The Lakers are. I mean, they're AD and LeBron, and so they seem at least on par with the Grizzlies. That's 10 teams where I feel like I am not convinced 100% because of my concerns about the Grizzlies' depth issues, their injury issues. Because we even talked about like Ja Morant plays 68 games in a good year. That's a good year. And like
Here's my, and I can't remember, this was on your outline, and maybe we've already sort of talked about it, but I haven't given you my pat answer.
Yeah.
And one of the questions was like, what's your biggest concern about the Grizzlies?
Yeah.
So here's a couple of stats for you. I did, and these are the only stats I think I include in this column because I was trying to write something a little bit more broad for more the general reader. So I wrote last night just a broad, big picture, shorter, mood of the season opening day column, right? Which will go up today as we talk on Tuesday or maybe tomorrow in the Grizzlies opener. But the one like statistical thing I put in that I hadn't put anywhere else. Over the last 3 seasons, and I say 3 because 3 seasons ago, Desmond Bane became a starter for the Memphis Grizzlies. Over the last 3 seasons, the trio of Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson has averaged 30 games a season with all 3 on the floor. Now, obviously, last season put a thumb on that scale, but the highest number of the 3 seasons is like 53. Mm-hmm. And so that's 30 games a season, all 3 on the floor. Over the last 5 seasons, the entirety of Ja Morant's career, the moment he arrived as a dual foundation player with Jaren Jackson Jr., the whole Ja Morant career, the average number of games per season Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson had played together, 35. Yep. Those numbers have to go up significantly this season for the Grizzlies to get where they want to go.
I want to say, was it 2 years ago? I think it was the 2022, 2023 season. We're like going into the playoffs. It was like, hey, our best 5-man lineup is Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, Brandon Clark, and Jaren Jackson Jr. They've played 4 possessions together all year because they were never never healthy all season. And it does feel like every single year it's like this guy's out. And I know like if each one of those main guys, and not even including Marcus Smart, who plays 50 games a year when you're lucky, like not even including those guys, like if Jaren plays 70, if Bane plays 70, if Ja plays 65, the math means there's not going to be an overlap for that many games. And I kind of feel like right now that they have to overlap. They all have to be there. And like, I think Jaren is Ja's the best player, but Jaren, I think, is the possibly most important player for availability, just because he kind of ties the whole room together. Right. And I worry what's the small guard? Like if we're running 3 guards against Utah, maybe it'll work out on opening night because Utah also weirdly has no large wings. Right. They have all centers and guards and Cody Williams. And it's like, it should work. So like, I'm just, maybe I'm more of a skeptic that like, man, we have to run this like the Paris basketball offense of just all small guards and back cuts. And maybe we win that way.
This was my concern early in the preseason in regard to the new offense is so much of it seemed predicated on penetration without the benefit of a screen, right? You're just taking your dude off the dribble and getting in the paint and guys are cutting and there's a reaction to that, right? Well, that's one thing if it's Ja Morant or Desmond Bane. Yeah. When it was Luke Kennard and John Conjar just trying to beat their dude one-on-one off the dribble to get to the paint and create all these actions, that does not look as good,
And I do wonder, you've talked about it before. You mentioned it on the Grizzlies podcast. You do the Daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast. The term tissue rejection when like if the team just ignores, like is if Ja Morant is losing by 8 to a team, is he going to be like, I'm not doing back cuts anymore. Give me the ball.
Well, I'm still been of the like pump the brakes, wait and see on this because I don't really trust. I've cited some preseason numbers, but I don't really trust that to mean much. Right. I sort of want to get 10 games into the season and evaluate things, but I've grown somewhat less concerned about that aspect. This is not working. Let's go back to the old stuff, the tissue rejection. We've seen that before with David Fizdale and the Grizzlies, where a new coach, a new philosophy comes in with players who have had success with something different and they just sort of reject it. I've grown less concerned about that. There's no, even with David Fizdale, even early on, you could tell some players were like, I don't know about this. And there's no real sense of that. But even more so, I like that I've seen balance with it even in the preseason. That for all the hype about the new offense, they're throwing the ball to Zach Edey in the post, which everyone said, well, you're not going to do that anymore. It
took them a couple of games, though.
It did. No, this is what I'm saying. This is why I was concerned early, and I've grown less concerned since. Okay. And then when Ja came back, you saw some Ja Edey pick and roll. But here's the thing. Everyone was focusing on the new offense stuff, but if you listen closely to Taylor Jenkins, and not only was I listening closely, I was recording and run it through a transcription system, which is really useful with Taylor Jenkins because he talks so fast. It's just all a blur. If you go back and read what he said, sometimes we're like, oh, he actually said something here. It just sort of flew by, you know?
Yeah.
He has said from the jump, like, you know, we're installing these new principles first, and then we're going to work in our set plays, and we're working our pick and roll. We're going to work in this. From the jump, he said, we're going to blend different stuff together, but we're focusing initially on trying to get this new system running. And so I think people took that as like the Grizzlies have a new offense, which they do to some degree, but it's not going to be like a pure ideological, I don't think, like we're just running our system all the time, no matter what. That's not, I think, what it's going to be.
All right, Chris, last thing. Who closes the game on Wednesday night?
Oh, on Wednesday night.
On Wednesday night, who closes the game?
Well, Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart.
Yep.
I mean, it's probably the starters, Zach Edey, Santi Aldama. I don't see like, because I think a lot of times we like the idea of like Brandon Clark as a closer, but that's with Jaren.
Right.
Like that's not with Santi, and that's not with Zach.
Yeah.
I do think there's a chance that they go small. If Santi is not having a great game, maybe it's small around Edey. I think they like that. And let's see who's having a good game. And we even talked about Jalen Wells. Maybe Jalen Wells like just keeps it going. You know,
and if he keeps it going, he had a game winner in the Utah Summer League. Let's get some of that magic back playing in Salt Lake City. Well, anyways, Chris, thanks so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure talking Grizzlies with you. Everybody out there, go read Chris at the Daily Memphian and listen to him and Drew Hill on the Daily Memphian Grizzlies podcast. And hopefully, Chris, we'll get you back on pretty soon.
All right. Thanks, Keith.